This is NFT Culture, and I'm John. I guess I'm by myself today.
Tell me a little bit about what's going on.
Hey, there's everybody. Hi, team. Hey.
I was gonna just
Welcome to
let
the
you
show.
sit there.
That was awesome.
I
I
wanted
was
to see
ready
how
to
long
go.
I could.
I was ready to go, bro. I was gonna start breaking down Aku.
I love it. I love it.
So what's
I'm
good, fam?
brokenhearted.
What's the word?
This monolith, man.
Yeah.
What's going on with the monolith? So listen. So apparently, if you have the monolith,
Mhm.
you get a monolith 2, a gold monolith 2. You get the cyber sneaker,
Mhm.
and you get a vial.
Okay.
So you get 3 things that came out of your monolith, which is now at 9.5 ETH. for the
So
monolith.
I've been wrapped up with Aku all day, so I haven't been able to watch the monolith or any of this stuff going on in Artifacts world. But is it 9 ETH for the old?
Yes.
So now we have an item that was worth 9 ETH, and then now we have 3 new items in our wallet that have separate market prices.
Yes.
Why does the monolith why is it still 9 ETH if they've given us 3 items now? Like, why does it have any
You
value
can
at
still
all?
redeem it for the 3 items.
Oh, okay. So you have to burn the monolith to get the 3 items.
I believe so.
Okay, we should look into
I
that.
papered mine for 4.5 about 20 minutes ago.
Well, I'm about to paper mine if they've given me 3 new items in my wallet and I can just dump this thing.
No, it's not. It's claim. It's like it's
Oh.
like the Bored Ape or any of the mint passes.
Oh, got it.
I'm grumpy.
So what's the reaction before I start diving into Aku? Because that's been the highlight of my day, man. I've been just seat on edge in the Aku Discord. It's been a pretty phenomenal day. What's the reaction to the monolith drop, Rob? What do you think? Was it 3 items worth 9 ETH? Was it worth the buildup? I mean, this is like a month or 2 month buildup.
Well, hold on. I'm looking at the crypto kicks. Floor price 4.6. So that's been falling. So the crypto kicks are 4.6.
Yeah, the
Wait, so
kicks also have rarities. So like there's rare or there's the vial maybe you have to use.
Your vial has to be added to your kicks in order to change it.
So the vial is what makes it fancy.
But it looks like it changes it permanently. So that's the only a one-time thing you get to do. And that's the rarity of your crypto kick. And I'm sure there's different rarities of it.
So it's every monolith holder basically gets a unique pair of
crypto
Nike,
kicks.
the very first Nike digital kicks online.
Correct.
Oh, dude,
Genesis.
That's worth like 30 ETH by itself. What are you talking about? Mal, you sold this thing for 4.5? This is the first. This is like providence like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, Nike Dunk Genesis crypto kicks.
Oh my gosh, dude. Sell your 8 now and go pick that monolith back up, dude. Right now. On stream, Malachi. You done foobarred this.
Hi, Malachi.
He gone. All right, so I'm confused. I'm confused though because y'all are giving me mixed messages here. I thought you had to burn the monolith to get your items. So if I still have my monolith in my wallet, then I don't have the 3 items. So I have to take it to the website, burn it to get my kicks, my vial, and what was the other thing? A new monolith.
Yeah.
A monolith 2.0. That's pretty sweet. So, Rob, did you do yours already?
I don't have one, man.
Oh.
You're our only hope right now.
And Mal, did you do yours?
You're going to get booted.
Okay, listen, I want to understand, Mal, what happened? Why did you paper? Like, you've come so far in like your inner paper hand demon returned. What happened?
You see it, John?
Oh, dude, that's so sweet. Yeah.
There's the vial you get, and there's the crypto kick.
So it looks like there's like different types of vials.
Yeah, I think your vial is indicative of your rare. What
the vial has rarity. Like there's a bunch of unique ones.
Oh wow! So that's awesome. So you had the monolith, and you could have a rare vial, or you could have just a floor vial.
Yes.
Oh, that's pretty freaking sweet. That's pretty sweet. That kind of reminds me of what Bored Apes did with their different serums, right, Mal? Like some people got S1s and S2s.
It lacks originality.
Oh.
Don't be.
Nice. I spoken like a true Non-owner, sir. Paper hander.
Bro, I'm poor. I have to FUD this now.
Hey, listen,
It's
I
not my
understand.
bag.
I understand. I FUD apes as much as I can. I don't have one. I FUD. It's okay. I get it.
I can tell you that, like, and this is just a habit that I've built for a long time, especially in NFTs. Like, you start seeing the market fluctuation, and I've gotten really good at practicing, like, ignore the immediacy afterwards. But today's just been such a crazy day, a little bit of stress, just a lot of moving parts. And so I was in a Discord and they were flooding it, talking a little smack, and I'm just watching this thing crater. And I'm just like, oh man, like someone's gonna catch my knife. I'm getting out of this thing. And then I tried to take 6, I tried to take 5, and eventually it fell to 4.5, and I sold it. It's just it's a lesson to say, like, if you have conviction on a project, don't let short-term volatility get to you, right? That's the biggest mistake you can make.
I've noticed there seems to be quite a lot of FUD around Artifact, CloneX, and their drops from Yuga Labs.
Yuga Labs FUDs everything,
P holders. And specifically, I think it's because of the Web 2 or the, I guess, meat space involvement, Web 2 involvement, obviously with Nike buying Artifacts. And I'm curious, Mal, I've heard Mike say this on air before, and you kind of said the same thing. Is it a bad thing that Nike bought Artifact in your eyes?
I mean, long term,
Yeah.
I think, like, short term, there's going to be a lot of, like, eventually Yuga Labs is probably going to become Nike, right? Like, maybe not as big, but I think, like, the purists of the space want the speculation. They want the purity of it. I think that right, wrong, or indifferent, Artifact is going to have to abide by the policies and legalese of the what's going to happen with Nike. So I do think that there's the part that eventually they're going to probably lose some of their innovative piece. I also think that, like, once it becomes more commonplace, like these early pieces, like first principles thinking is like, I'm an idiot. Like, why did I sell it? Right? It's the first piece that had a Nike logo on it. Of course, it's going to be historic.
Mm-hmm.
That's objectively, like, I let a short-term, like, momentary lapse in judgment, like, cloud my vision, and I'm paying for it. So
It's going down right now. It's 4.2
for the
crypto kick.
No, I'm not worried about the kick. I want all 3, right?
Well, then the floor price of the vial is only 2.1.
Yeah. So, like, the point of this is that I think that, like, everything's going to get disrupted, and we're, like, in a very, very quick period of disruption that's occurring. I do think that the Web 2 mentality is going to be tough. I think that Artifact as an innovator loses a lot of that because, like, it's no longer Artifact, it's Nike, right? Right, wrong, or indifferent. They can't go and do their unique things. It's like when Blizzard bought the company that made Diablo and they became Blizzard North, right? You're not ever going to be unique from that anymore. So I do think that the ability for, like, future innovation to occur is probably going to come from outside, but, like, Artifact is just going to be the studio that Nike uses for Web3.
Rob, what are your thoughts? Do you agree with that statement?
I love it, dude. I love it.
You love the fact
Nike,
that
look, Nike's going to help move the entire space of NFTs forward through Artifact. I think they're going to be pushing the limits, getting it involved. Hopefully, they do apparel attached to the cyber sneaker. That's going to be badass. And I think it's awesome. I love it.
Cool. Molly, I think your opinion is most important to me with this question because you're still relatively fresh. What is your take? Because most of the capital that's going to come into space isn't here yet, and they're going to be coming on. Which brand resonates more with you, Nike or Yuga Labs? You're muted.
I move around a lot, so I have to, like, keep quiet. Mainly before last week, I couldn't have told you what Unilabs was. So I know Nike. I trust Nike. have a closet full of Nike.
Interesting.
But I don't know, because I'm going to say everyone who's coming in is going to know Nike before they know anything else in the space. So they're going to trust what they know, a proven brand, versus, a brand that they've never heard of, who might probably, that's how I'm seeing it. I'm trying to like put what you guys are saying together, and again, they're just going to trust what they know at first, unless they're just going to go in blind and say, oh yeah, let's just follow everyone else.
Right. Got it. Okay. So your thought is that if you have a really well-known Web3 studio and it gets bought by arguably the most well-known Web2 fashion brand, that the combination of those is pretty powerful?
Yeah.
Agreed?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So
the big thing for me is the principles of what Web3, and I agree with Rob's statement and Molly's statement. I think like there's two like simultaneous thoughts that like, does Artifact continue to innovate, and does Nike continue to push the needle? And simultaneously, does Nike provide a platform to onboard millions and millions of new people, to Rob's point? So I do, I simultaneously can say that like, do they push the envelope continuously? I don't know, but like the fact that tomorrow everyone's going to be talking about the first Nike metaverse shoes isn't bad.
Yeah, super cool.
Mike, welcome, man. How are you, sir?
Mike!
How's life, sir? Oh, he's muted.
Life's good and mute.
You're muted. You're cranking away muted.
He looks tired.
He does. He's working hard. That's a dev look right there.
Are you in crunch time, Mike?
Poor Mike.
He's in mute time.
Nice mute.
Oh. You were clicking away on the keyboard. I had to mute you. I didn't know it was like an admin mute.
My bad. No, how's it going, everybody?
Hey.
What's up?
I don't know why I'm like letterboxed. Oh, okay, it's all good. Yeah, just doing my standard project crunch today. We did the Monster Champion eggs, an airdrop for their menagerie is what they're calling it, which is like a contract that'll hold like the eggs and they'll turn into monsters after a while. In the Monster Champion game, we'll give you eggs as you play it. And you can get eggs from other things, and they'll all turn into monsters eventually. So I rolled that out today. So
is it done?
Yeah.
So I have
they're eggs. All out there. Do you have champions? Then you should have eggs.
Oh yeah,
bro.
Oh yeah, I got champions. Mal, you got champions too?
Yeah, eggs are out there now.
They're all hidden though.
Really? Yeah. You use some burner wallets we don't know?
No, I mean like they literally, because it's an airdrop, show up as hidden in OpenSea by default.
Oh.
Yeah, I hope that people understand that. I've had trouble like just kind of getting that point across to newer people who are new to NFTs. Like if you get airdrop stuff, most of the time it's going to go into your hidden area, because most of the time that's spam, which kind of sucks, because when you get a good airdrop like these sweet eggs, then you want it to show up in your collection, and eventually they'll turn into little monsters.
That's awesome. I'm excited. I hope I get something rare.
I think all these original eggs are all going to be like the higher rarities.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of a...
So the first generation will lack rarity?
It'll lack rarity in the sense that everything will be rare.
Rob woke up choosing violence, and I've continued the...
Oh, no.
I took the torch.
So Mike, Monolith revealed today, man, while you were heads down.
Oh, okay.
We finally revealed. I was busy in Aku, so I didn't get to see it. But apparently it was pretty sweet. First digital sneakers. Okay. First Nike sneakers in Web3, man.
How much were people paying for those monoliths? 20 ETH?
No, they were 9 ETH. I think that the top right, Mal, they went up to 9.
Went up to about 8.1 before the reveal. 9.4 now.
I mean, like a month ago when they were at like 20, 25 ETH for a few days.
No, that was
No, that was
wrong.
that was
an error.
a
That was
flaw.
an error.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
no.
But I sold mine for 4.5 and it doubled.
Mal paper handed today. He was in a Discord filled with Mike V's that were fudding the non-purity of artifacted clone for selling to the legacy bad man Nike, and so he got
Okay,
flooded
but
out.
how much are these things? How much are these things? They were selling for 10 ETH, so $30,000 pair of shoes for metaverse shoes.
For the first ever Nikes?
Yeah,
They're
first
undervalued.
ever.
That's undervalued.
What's the
man.
quantity of those bad boys?
10,000.
So apparently,
oh, like
they did,
16,000.
so they
Okay,
copied
One of
Bored Apes.
16,000.
Listen, they took a play from the Bored Apes book and gave a
Mhm.
serum that basically makes each shoe unique. You combine it like in your box, you got the
Okay.
shoe, the serum, and then another box for that has more in it. And
Okay.
so like you combine the two and you get a unique. You have it's like a one of one sneaker.
Okay, I like that. I think that that's cooler.
Yeah.
So would you have to buy a completely new shoe or obtain a different new shoe and then do a new vial? Or
Yes.
can you take out the vial, put in another vial, and then put a new vial in?
It changes it.
Yeah. I think this is going to go down just like serum, where whoever goes out there and has the foresight or like the true conviction and starts buying up all of these vials. As people make their shoes, they might not like them and they want to make a new shoe, but the vials don't exist. So then the vial supply will continue to decrease while the shoe supply stays stagnant.
Hold on,
Like,
real quick.
now if I say
Hold on, sorry, real quick. Like, what happens? So, can the vial be used twice on the same shoe? And does
I assumed it could.
Does the output, if you use two vials, is it the second vial usurps or overwrites the first vial, or does the second vial and the first vial create a third derivative? I'm sad.
I don't know.
But in my defense, today I did encourage Mike to sell the top of the kennel dogs.
You did
Where
it,
are
Mike?
dogs at now? No, I didn't sell.
Oh.
I don't want to deal with taxes. That's too
Oh
fresh.
Oh my God.
The kennel dogs are at 9.5.
Oh man, 3 ETH. But what if I couldn't?
I told you to sell, and y'all were all.
No, you're right.
No, I was saying sell. I said sell and rebuy.
And I said take gains, take profits. And y'all said, "Oh, let's look at his wallet. Did he sell? Did he list?"
No, none of us did.
I would have. In fact, I did it. I did it with the Akutar Mint Pass. I sold, and then I minted for less.
For me, though, if I had gotten back into dogs, I would have gotten a different dog probably because I still had the numbers matching dog, which doesn't end up meaning anything.
Even more of a reason you should have done it, Mike. Then you could have got the dog you wanted for less.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Mistakes were made all around today. But Mike, congratulations.
Not by this guy. This guy came out.
Congratulations on what? What did I do?
You survived another project launch.
Yeah, that's true. Another project notch on the project belt.
Human, robot, angel, and devil. Oh, the vials were based on your clone species.
Oh man! So whoever got my monolith made out like a bandit.
Yeah.
That's sick.
The demon.
That's cool.
So whoever bought mine got some demon vial.
That's awesome.
Thanks,
You
Anthony.
would have a demon.
Hey, the shoe's now 3.7.
Oh, it's dropping.
Yeah.
Dropping hard.
Yeah.
Are they rare ones that are worth more?
These are blank ones.
So the shoes are all blank. Everybody got the same shoe, but the vial changes it, I guess. Right, Rob? Yeah.
Man, they should have had a Ferocious attached to this.
It makes sense that the shoes would be inexpensive. That maybe the shoes are a thing to hoard in a few days.
No. It's got to be the vials, man. The shoes is everybody got one.
But
I guess everybody got a vial too.
Which one's going to have the supply limited first? Can you morph? If you can use the same, like a vial on the same shoe multiple times,
there, Mike.
Yeah, the shoes are going to be worthless.
See it, Mike?
Yeah.
And look at the red one. That's like a demon.
Mm-hmm.
Look at those. See?
But if it locks you
green
into
one.
only being able to do a shoe once, then the
Anthony's
shoes are
dropping
just
the
valuable.
alpha here. That's the play.
Yeah, it was the play for just about everything. Same with the apes, right? The serums became worth the most, right?
Has Nike committed to doing anything with the metaverse with these shoes, though? Like, they
Yeah.
still have to integrate with people. What metaverses are they going to integrate with?
I'm pretty sure that like it's going to be easy for Nike and whomever else, because what I think is going to happen is what we're going to see. Oh, that one kicked Molly off. What we're going to see is a standardization of metaverse where like there's going to be a framework that agnostic of which metaverse you're in, there's going to be like a standard. And then if you sorry, he just turned off. If you maintain that standard, it'll work across any metaverse. I think that's what has to happen. Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Definitely see it trending that way.
For
sure.
But let me paint an alternative picture. Like, and Google is the most famous for this strategy of we're going to make something cool, and then we're just going to abandon it, and then eventually we're going to kill it.
Mm.
So when you're working with corporations, like, how do you know that, they're going to release this metaverse shoe and then some new product manager is going to come in 2 years and decide it's not worth the hours to do the integrations with other metaverses, and they're just going to be like, well, that's it. And then because it's a corporation, they're not going to give the rights to the community to be able to do it for themselves. They're going to still keep those integration rights hoarded.
You sound like a man that's been beaten down.
I don't know, man.
But that's, what isn't that part of this space is like the ownership aspect of it. So Nike could come in and say, oh, we're done. We want all the ownership back. And then that's just going to cause anarchy and probably more taxes for everyone. So
or harvesting.
A way to keep them in check if they're going to join the space and actually join the space and give ownership to other people.
Yeah, I think that's important I don't know where Nike falls in that bucket. Like, I do think it's important. I think the projects that are successful, or it's kind of like a catch-22. The projects that are going to be successful are the ones that are going to do exactly like what you said, where they give people ownership, and the fact that the community has ownership and can rely on something existing long-term is why it's going to exist long-term. But those communities and those projects where they retain ownership, you're like going to be a victim of them just deciding to cancel the project at some point. All projects are going to get canceled that are not like community managed. Like, there is no corporation that's lasted like super long.
Mike was definitely in the Discord that caused Malachi to paper hand that. There's no doubt.
I'm just making all this off the top of my head today. So
before we get time with your thoughts.
He's coding a smart contract saying this is all gonna end. There's no permanence. What is life? Existential crises. But John, I want to get to Akutars, but I do want to briefly, if we can, talk about like this. Maybe we save it. Like, I wanted to talk about what Rob and I kind of hinted at this morning with like the great filter and the fact that like even the well-intentioned or good-intentioned projects are going to fail, but that might take us to too negative of a space today.
No, I let's do it. Let's go there. Let's get negative.
All right, today we choose violence.
Hey, but funny story. Let me throw this in there before we start. I've been coding in my office all day, and I have the windows all closed down because my wife's gone. She's not in town. And so, like, earlier I left to go get a beer, and I went out in the sunlight. Oh, man, it felt all weird just in normal light, getting out of the cave. So this is definitely a cave day, so I'm going to keep the lights dim, and now let's go. Let's go dark.
Need your sunglasses to walk around the house.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Exactly.
Jesus.
Like,
Okay. Once again, Mike, I'm really proud of you for knocking out another contract for NFTCulture. This time on Polygon. Yeah, most projects are going to fail. And like the hypothesis is that, we've talked about it a lot, but like we're starting to see this period right now where like there has to be a pullback that happens. And so the analogy that Mike and I were talking about offline was like this: basically, is it a super volcano? Is it a meteor? Is it global warming? Is it like whatever? And that probably got us demonetized. But whatever is going to happen is like there's two things, right? There's these great projects. There's the good intention projects, and then there's like the nefarious projects. And so what my concern is, like the great projects, the punks, probably Bored Ape, probably Azuki, probably CloneX, probably Aku, like are going to make it through the great filter because they have so many external forces now that like they can survive an extinction event. They've provided enough value that they're going to live. But then there's so many projects. And every day there's like 20 new projects, and all of them are builders. They're all like good people. Not all of them, but like a lot of them are good people. They're docs teams. They want to do a good job. But like humans, this is going to sound really bad, but like humans are so fickle, and our ability to be, in tribes and our attention span is so like varied that like under different discords you can only focus on like 2 or 3, and right, like it goes back to the principle of like you can only have like 120 relationships before things start falling apart. We're like way past that, and so as even the good projects or the well-intentioned projects that are like focusing on like, hey, we got this roadmap, it's going to be great. The current state of the market, everyone is focusing on like the next thing. Where's the next alpha? What's the next project that's going to succeed? And so like what's going to happen is all of these good projects, they're going to be like, oh, this Discord is going to like slowly die. This project's, it's not going to die tomorrow. It's not going to be a rug pull, but people are just going to slowly move on, and then they're just not going to come back. And I don't think for a lot of these projects, if we go back and we're archaeologists and we come back, like there's not going to be this big resurgence where we go find the 3,000 projects that launched over the last 3 months and like go resuscitate them. They're going to be relics of the past, except for like these outlier projects. And eventually NFTs are going to go mainstream. But the other side of this is that art isn't going to fall into that category, in my opinion. Like the actual art that didn't promise utility, that you just bought it because it was a cool piece and you'd own it if it was zero. Like those are the pieces that have the real long-term viability. That very quickly, then I'm going to shut up and let y'all debate, is like baseball cards. Like imagine like baseball cards where we're all buying baseball cards, whether it was Don Russ or Upper Deck, we were all buying like the same things. But imagine like there were baseball cards, there were plate cards, there were fork cards, there were like rock cards for every animal had its own set of baseball cards or cards collectibles. None of us would have ever bought that. And so like the speculation here is that like all of that is going to go to zero and only a few projects are going to make it through.
Yeah, one thing, like you can draw a line where I think the nifty projects will be historical. And I'm going to draw that line with the Azuki project. I think there's 2 phases of nifties. There's post-Azuki and pre-Azuki. If you look at 2021, like almost all nifty projects that people know of are 2021 projects. I mean, there's a lot after 2021, of course, but there's really most of the stuff before 2021 was like Nifty Gateway, and then like some of the other smaller platforms like Super Rare and Rareable, they were starting to kind of trickle out art pieces. But really 2021 is the foundational year. And the reason why I think anything post Azuki is going to be kind of in a different category, and anything pre Azuki is kind of like potentially special, not necessarily special, but potentially special, is because Azuki kind of changed the game with the cost of minting stuff, with the efficiency. So once Azuki came out, then it became a lot less of a hindrance to mint out 10,000 unit collections because it cost 1/100th of the gas, and that kind of corresponded with this kind of spike of garbage projects. Because a lot of garbage projects, you could just mint a project and you could get on Icy Tools or whatever, any of those analytical sites, by just airdropping to yourself 8,000 units and then just trick people into buying 2,000 units. It kind of became a lot more achievable to do that. Prior to Azuki, the cost of additional tokens was linear. So no matter what, you really had to convince people to buy. And so those projects that were successful pre-Azuki, I think, are going to be the ones that people are going to go back and build out this historical record. So I want
to make one real quick comment on that, and then I will be quiet before we get comments about me talking too much. The other thing about that is I mostly agree with you. I think there are going to be projects that break through. Like Moonbirds could be the biggest project ever, period, at the end. We don't know. And there will be other projects that do hit the top 5 or top 10. Like, who are we to assume that, a year ago when we were talking to Danny, it's like gutter cats are the biggest thing, right? Like, and gutter cats and cool cats and all these other projects they're not on life support, but they're not like as big as they were. The other point that you made that just came to me was not only is it easier to mint from a gas perspective, it's a lot less expensive, but the greatest risk is that if you were going to launch a project before 721A or what Azuki brought to the world, is it was also very expensive to mint the initial contract. So you had to make a decision like, am I going to gamble thousands and thousands of dollars to put this on the blockchain so that people can actually start buying it? Now with the Azuki or 721A and the innovations that have happened, you could spin up 5 projects a day for $1,000. And I think you're right. Like, it made it not only very inexpensive for the buyer to interact with the contract, but it also made it very inexpensive for people to throw out contracts. And so now, once it's easy to throw stuff out, it makes it a lot more risky.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, that's an interesting point about the cost of contracts, because the average gas price prior to Azuki was like 250 Gwei just sitting there all the time. And now it's kind of more of an average of 50 Gwei. So it's like 1/5 the cost to deploy contracts too. So that's another interesting aspect to it. Yeah, I think contracts, anything that was launched in 2021, I think that'll kind of be the beginning year where people really care. And I think there's a lot of special projects. I think it still matters whether the community is still active and whether the team that created the project still exists. Like, I don't think, like, if there's a project that was really cool that was launched in 2021 and no one's really interacting with it anymore, and it's just out there on the blockchain, but basically completely like not doing anything, then I think those projects will probably not really be very important. But I think if it's a 2021 project and it's still, the people are still around in 5 years and still like contributing to the ecosystem, I think those are going to be the ones that are going to be really special and be sought out. Because at this point, we're going to have, we've had 20 projects a day for the last, 6 months, and there's going to be just so many projects a few years from now. And there's really going to be, I mean, at some point, like you said, there's going to be a great filter event. I personally think metaverses are going to matter. Which ones work with the best metaverses? And we'll see how it shakes out.
I mean, I don't know anything, but as far as group work and projects, the backbone to me is super important. Like, if they're going to stick around, if they're not going to stick around, just be transparent. Like, if this is a one and done project, let everyone know, and then just move on. If you're here for a particular reason, don't waste our time when we get excited about something knowing that that's it. If that's it, that's fine. We can live with that. But it's the ones who come in with, here's this great plan, and we are, it's going to be amazing, and then everyone drops off. Because then that's just disappointing, and I wasted, all of my communication time on a project that isn't going to do anything or bring me happiness, because now I'm just sad that it's disappearing. So.
Well, what you're saying is actually, like, very briefly, and then we'll move on to Akutars, is that like the slow rug is actually like going to become a feature where it's like, so many people are going to be like the slow rug. Like, so there's rug pulls, right? And like it's when you launch a project and then just take everyone's money and disappear, right? You get rugged. And like people are getting smarter about that. But then there's like also like the long-term viability. But then it's like, I think that there's gonna be a lot of projects that are like, all right, we could make like $3 million or $10 million or $20 million, and we don't actually have to do much. We just have to put in like 3 months of work trying to prove to the community, as long as they don't overpromise on like the roadmap and it's not a security, and like they just try to keep it viable. All they have to do is keep the community thriving long enough for everyone else to get tired of it.
Yeah, people get tired of it. I feel like Mecca is a slow. Mecca is the exact. That's
awesome.
That is just, well, okay. Then you have projects like that, and now I'm getting heated. Where you are going to lose people instantly, and then the community as a whole dies because everyone.
But they won't know.
Well, if they get burned on so many projects, they're just going to be like, "Peace out, Boy Scout. I'm out of here."
That's true. I think, yeah.
And maybe that's just because, like, I know we're a violent generation now. Like, we're just like, you scorn once, I'm gonna walk away from you forever. So maybe they're more forgiving, but I
don't know. I don't think people are
don't
forgiving at all.
Don't be mean to me. Don't cross me. It's not gonna be pretty.
No, I think that's how everybody. I mean, I agree. That's definitely how a lot of people seem to be in the Nifty space. Like some of these projects that kind of had rough launches, like Banner Sports or like the association, like they have a tall hill to climb. If you're a project team and you have a project and it kind of comes off a little rough, like do you like try to climb that hill for 6 months, or do you like just go anonymous and do a completely fresh project? You know, like it's a tough. I mean, I'm sure they make those decisions because if you're going to try to climb that hill and dig out of that hole that you got yourself into from that rough launch, then you kind of have to really commit to, earning people's trust back, which is really hard. So that's why, like, when I'm doing projects, I try super, super hard not to make any mistakes up front. Like I kill myself to try not to make any mistakes because most of the time, you get that money up front and then it's basically no revenue the rest of the time. So you want to, like, if you have to dig out of a hill and you're not getting any extra revenue from it, it's really demotivating.
So Rob, let me ask you a question, because you're like, you got the art eye. Do you think any projects, any of these PFP projects, which we're mostly talking about when we're saying they're going to, disappear because they're all promising a bunch of utility that they'll either never deliver on, or by the time they deliver on it, the community's gone. Do you think that any of the PFPs that exist today are going to have like provenance? In other words, like, are people going to want to own them for a piece of history? And if so, which projects would you say people want to own just to
for PFPs?
Yes, for PFPs.
I think Bored Apes and CryptoPunks.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's about it.
That's it? That's the only two in your mind?
That's the only two that I think would withstand a great filter.
Okay.
I mean, for PFPs in general.
Yes, for
PFP.
For PFPs, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think those two. What other options do I have?
So are you saying that because they're just great, or because that is what's been the greatest so far?
I think they're the ones that are the original OG stuff. So it's withstood many small filters. And I think it would withstand the big filter. I think so.
Yeah, there was that time where anything that was old, you guys remember this, when any project that was old, somebody dug up an old contract and they were flying on OpenSea. If you could find like the rare Pepes and, these other ones that predate punks, are punks and Bored Apes the only ones that are going to have long-term value just because they're historical. Mike, what do you think? Is there another one other than Bored Apes or Punks?
If I had an auto
I mean,
I'd put that up there.
as a developer, I'm always going to say Azuki has a special spot. I mean, they changed the game with gas.
Yeah, but let me challenge you on that, okay? Because I'm not involved in the Azuki
because
space.
he doesn't have an Azuki.
Listen.
I don't either.
I'm not involved in the space, okay? And they
I
did
wish I
something.
did.
They did something that developers may appreciate, right? But
we all
other than
appreciate
that,
50 Gwei.
right? But most collectors and most retail aren't going to be keying in on that. You know, it's going to be the brands that are recognizable that they remember from the very beginning of this mania. So, is Azuki really fitting that category? What for just provenance of the image itself? Are people going to remember that Azuki was an original?
I think you have a really interesting point there, is that like it's also the derivatives. Like one of the things that I liked about Azuki is that it wasn't an animal, right? It's like the 17th koala, the 30th rat, like all these, like the birds. Like we're finally seeing like some good art that like the art was second to none. And it was almost the first. So I think like Azuki has a shot, but the other worry that we have is that like it's also easy to replicate, right? Anime inspired art it becomes like, okay, is that an Azuki? Is that a flipped Azuki? Is it something else that looks kind of similar? And my concern on that side is like Azuki hasn't met the threshold yet. I think there was a comment from PHGo about Doodles. I think Doodles art is uniquely positioned that like you'll recognize a Doodle whether it's worth 30 ETH or 0. I worry that that's not there. I think that the important thing to happen is that next thing. And so for me, I think like Punks gave you me bits, right? And that made it historic. And then Bored Ape Yacht Club gave you the dogs and then the mutant and then the land, that made it historic. Azuki gave you the beans. Like if the beans are successful, it's like it's less of, and I agree on the contract. Like I think from a foundational element, whether Azuki succeeds or not is irrelevant to the impact Azuki had on the history of blockchain and NFTs. And so I think there's always going to be a special place for Azuki from a purist that comes in to say, okay, the next leap forward came from Azuki. But from an optics standpoint, it's, can a project deliver utility that creates enough value that they can derive value from that and then choose what they do with it from that perspective? And so for Azuki to kind of go into the realm of Bored Ape Yacht Club or Punks, it's like, is the bean successful? Because inherently that next, it goes back to all those analogies. Like anyone can get lucky once, but can luck become a habit, and can you push through and create value with that second piece, that drop? And then once you prove that, I think that's the criteria we should judge these projects.
So let me rephrase it because I think this is a better way to say what I just asked. If the market were to collapse and everything basically goes to nothing, you have this great filter and everything is at floor. 4 years from now, what do you think? What PFP do you think people are going to be looking to pick up at floor? Which ones? Which projects?
I definitely think Azuki there.
Okay,
for sure.
Okay. Anything other than Azuki that you'd go back and pick up, Mike, at floor 3 years from now when nobody's delivered on any sort of utility whatsoever?
Yeah, I think if you're talking about everybody just drops the ball and then you're just trying to go back and collect historical pieces. Yeah, I definitely think, like, if it was me personally, I would definitely want to pick up Azuki at some point because I feel like it is a historical piece. Okay. Apes, I think, are probably apes and a lot of other things are so dependent on the mechaverse. I mean, the metaverse play, not mechaverse. Geez, metaverse play. Like, if the other side is good, I think apes will kind of cement themselves.
Hell yeah.
I think one difference between apes and other and other projects is like, if you want to be a part of a club, you want to be a part of the best club. You don't want to just be a part of like some random club that doesn't have any prestige. And so, can we have multiple clubs that have the same prestige as, I mean, can you have multiple clubs at the top? Like, I guess with colleges, there's like the Ivy League, and most of those Ivy League colleges have like similar prestige, but maybe some slightly more than others. But if you're an Ivy League college, you're like a certain level of prestige. And so that kind of proves that humans can kind of associate the premier level of prestige with multiple things. But I think apes have gotten into that tier, and so they will be valuable because of that. Azuki is kind of different. It's valuable because of this technical thing it did. I'm curious to know what other projects are going to move into that ape tier. I don't know if there's anything else up there. Like Azuki would never, I don't think Azuki is going to be able to get into that tier of prestige by virtue of just its project. Like, I feel like Doodles maybe. I mean, I feel like their community seems to really be pushing some things. Anthony's saying 10K TF, which is an interesting point.
Because it's people.
He is like, he keeps that thing at arm's length though. He is weird about it. He like hypes it sometimes. He like strategically hypes it. But then other times he's like, what's 10K TF? I don't even know what that is. But I think like, what communities can get into that top tier?
Okay. All right. So, Molly, your thoughts in terms of what projects you think would have value, even though they don't deliver on any utility whatsoever, and you could buy it 3 years from now on the floor.
I don't
She's
know,
also a weekend.
Yeah, I would.
I know. I'm looking at something.
It would depend on if I ever thought that it would go like back up, like, you know,
No.
It's going to be forever. Okay.
You're just buying a piece of history. You're buying a piece of history. Don't worry about the price. What do you buy?
I'm going to get like pitchfork content, but I don't know if I would buy anything. I mean, I would want this historic piece, sure, but if it's not, I don't know. I don't know. Mainly just so I could fit in, I would buy everything, but
buy them all.
But if it doesn't like bring me joy, I'm not gonna. Mainly because I missed it, and I'll say that because I don't resonate with it because I missed it. So.
Ether rock, that's a good one. Just buy a rock. There you go. But it's not worth anything, so can't count on that big price tag. I think a lot of it has to do with what time you came into the space. Right, if you've been in the space for a while, like your grail is probably a punk, regardless of what happens, utility or anything like that. You just want to have one. I know if I was on the floor and I could buy anything, I'd go buy a punk, and I wouldn't think twice. Like if you were a little bit newer to the space, it might be an 8 for you, depending on when you came in, and then after that, I think it subsequently rolls to what was really popping when you came into the space, what you want to go buy later on. And so I think the project has to make it to that really exclusive tier and have a huge cult following so that when it dies, you had that original group of people that remember that and want to go buy it. That's my thought.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of bring it full circle, it's like, and we went down a rabbit hole, and for us, it is punks because Rob got the punks early, and he could have had 3. Let's just not forget that he could have had 3.
Could have had 10.
Listen, I still have 2 bids sitting on punks. Right, my bids never canceled; they're still sitting there.
They'll be fulfilled.
It's also like your first time. How old are you when you discover like the impact that music has on you for the first time? And like we're in such this like hyper like compressed timeline where like a month in NFTs is like 10 years, and like the normal world, where it's like, if I came in, there's people that just got into NFTs and have traded hundreds of ETH in the last 3 months. And like, they're 9 months removed, 10 months, 12 months removed from like when most of us got in, and Rob is 8 months ahead of us. So like, when you think about, Rob was listening to the Beatles, and like, we got in at Nirvana, and then like some people got in at Linkin Park, and some people are listening for the first time. Like, and so like that time, that era is like when that's going to resonate with you. But I also think that there's the other thing is to say like there, we're only focusing on the legacy projects. Like, what happens tomorrow? What can there be another innovation that is so profound that we take another leap forward, like Azuki did from a contract? Can we have something that's so influential and so groundbreaking that we, it continues to do that? And then when you also think about like what happens if a year from now there's 10 times as many people in the NFT space, 20 times, 30 times, 50 times that happens, what does that do? And then I think it's just so interesting to see what a volatile space that we're in, and the risk is definitely well documented, but it's definitely an exciting time to be here.
Yeah, if you go beyond PFPs and look at what is possible with these digital contracts, these NFTs, that's a whole nother discussion. Like what Cube is doing, for example. I saw y'all's copy this morning. I couldn't disagree with Rob more on that. I mean, it doesn't matter if the sport doesn't have a huge following right now. Like this whole thing, this whole movement was built around creating and attracting attention. And that's how sports grow. You get attention. And he's leveraging the technology to do what it's supposed to do. And so this thing, it has the chance to actually pass the NBA. Yeah, you give a bunch of people the ability to actually own and make returns, which, by the way, I have no idea how he's doing this. I wish I would have joined that space sooner that you had with him, and I could ask him a bunch of questions like legally how they're pulling this off, because it's incredible. But, imagine if you get paid to put your eyes on something versus not getting paid to put your eyes on something. Like, where do your eyes go?
Watch to earn.
Yeah, it's watch to earn. So, and then, then it opens up for all sorts of really cool things. Like all of a sudden you got an NFT that shows you have the ownership of this team, and you can start taking out loans against that. If you want to buy a house, don't have the funds. Well, I have this stake in this 3-on-3 team that happens to be worth now, $250,000. Why don't I take out a loan and buy a house with it? Like, this is like next level stuff that he's doing. And if there's ever been a time for a new sport to be invented, or a new sport to supplant or take over for an existing legacy sport, this is the technology and this is the time to do it. Like, it's such a fundamental shift on what Cube is doing, and I have no idea how he's doing it, but I'm in. I'm gonna be taking part of that.
I do want to make a comment about like the reason I appreciate Rob so much, and Rob's also like authentic as hell and is always going to provide his viewpoint. But the thing I love about Rob when we got into that this morning is like he has his own view of the world. He's going to call it straight. He doesn't like pixel art, so he's not going to buy a Moonbird. He doesn't like basketball, so he's not going to do that. What he does is, and it goes back to like it's the speculation piece versus like, I like that. And like that confidence it takes to say, I'm going to miss 90. I'm not even going to engage in 90% of it because it's not my thing. But when Rob, and I don't want to keep speaking for you, Rob, but it's like you turned us all into CryptoPunk fans. You turned us all into Rafiq Anadol. Like we wouldn't have gone and dropped 10 grand at the Rafiq exhibit in New York.
Take my money. Exactly. Take my money. It was amazing.
And so I love just like, you're like, all right, this is what I know. This is what I like. This is where I'm at. But then for me, it's like, it goes back to like the utility part where you were just talking to Mike about Azuki, John, and like, do you care about the utility piece of it? Because the contract's so good. But then it's also like, I'm doing the same thing to Rob about like, hey, the utility of the basketball league and how unique that is versus the art of that. So it's just so interesting how we all think about that.
Is that project live right now?
No, not yet.
Okay, well, Let me know. I'll buy into it for you. I'll buy it with you.
Hell yeah.
We don't have 25 grand.
Oh, is that
Man,
what
I'm
you're
actually
gonna
thinking about taking. I mean, I know it's pricey, but this one might be one you have to take a swing at.
Should NFTCulture DAO one NFT of the cube?
He's gonna launch those at 8 ETH.
Well,
Yeah, but
well,
like if the league is successful, it's on CBS. Ticket sales alone, you make your money back in 3 years.
Okay. No, I'm not
Dang.
disagreeing with the concept. Just that's a big entry price, but that's cool.
But I mean, you own fractional ownership of the fastest growing sport in the United States behind the UFC. So like, who cares if you watch basketball or not? Like, now we're going into business theory and all that stuff.
the interesting thing with that. Go ahead, Mike.
I think that's really interesting. I got in this conversation with my dad, of course, an old man, about like Nifties, and he's like, I read that they're a bubble, and I'm like, the art aspect of Nifties is probably a bubble. Let's not kid ourselves. Like, some of the pieces of art that are just like very basic images that are, 10 ETH is probably not sustainable, but the underlying technology, like the programmatic guarantee of execution that smart contracts offer, digital property rights, I think that's a game-changing thing. And so I love the projects where people are trying to push it out into the real world. Like, this is exactly why I love Beeple, is because he tries to blend digital and physical art into one thing. And I think this like basketball thing is kind of a similar thing, where he's trying to take like ownership of the teams, merge that into the digital property rights realm, which is, he's definitely pushing the bleeding edge of things. But I think we're going to go through a period over the next like 1 to 5 years where stuff's going to shake out. And this is why I feel like, this isn't financial advice. This is just me saying words, opinion. But like, you almost are incentivized to just invest in like any top tier land project, because you only need 1 out of 10 to be a winner, and you will make a huge amount off of it. Because it's kind of an uncertain, no one knows how it's going to play out. Like, these kind of like blended companies where it's exploring new ways to pull in ownership and handle ownership of something. Like, we don't know how these things are going to shake out, and no one can know. I think the projects where the people are really embracing the technology, like Cube is doing, I think it's awesome. I think those are going to be the ones that are most likely to be successful, but you really can't predict it. But it's just like back in 2000 with internet companies. You don't know if, Amazon is going to be the winner or AOL is going to be the winner. You really just don't know. You can look at the teams and maybe make a better prediction, but stuff's going to shake out over the next couple of years. I think a lot of stuff is going to probably not work, and you have to be aware of that. But those few that do, I think, are going to be massive wins. Like, that's where I think apes, if they can pull off the other side metaverse, it's going to be huge. Now, the flip side of that is, if they can't pull off other side, if other side ends up being crappy and not engaging, then all that value is going to just disappear. So it's super high risk, but the rewards are definitely there.
Do you think that, like, people coming in, should they understand both sides of, or all the sides of NFT? Like, everything that they probably don't know that they should maybe know? Like, what are contracts? Like, what are all, because I see a lot of people starting to go in blind, would be, because they want, how can I be the next, XYZ? Well, you do it quickly, you do it fast, and you try not to be last. So what what does that look like if everyone just starts rushing, and then does it lose its pizzazz, or are we just kind of
That's why alpha's the devil.
I mean,
Because everyone's pumping their bags so that someone else will hold it, right? And the people that are inexperienced are going to come in here and be like, "Oh, look, I bought this," and then they're holding a bag that's worth nothing.
let me answer your statement with or do my best to answer it. I think that's a really insightful like line of thinking. Imagine you got to read the terms and conditions of some website. Like Rob asked me, and Rob talked about this a lot. Like, should I put my money into crypto.com, their debit card?
Mm-hmm.
You know, can you, like, I'm not an attorney, Rob's not an attorney, you're not an attorney.
No.
As far as I know. But that doesn't mean that you can't like try to read what the terms and conditions of crypto.com's debit card and their reward system are and try to understand it. And I think the same applies to, like, if you're buying a house, you might not be an attorney or a realtor, but you can go and read all the house paperwork and kind of try to understand it. So I think the same kind of rule applies in this metaverse world with contracts. I think people are going to be super duper intimidated by it because some of it's code, and like that's totally fair. It's actually relatively understandable code as far as code goes, but I think it's worth it to try to learn as much as you can about the system, because the benefits of being able to understand it, at least even to a small degree, are going to be really valuable to you long term. The same way that if you can kind of read the purchase agreement for a house and kind of understand it a little bit, like know like which parts are boilerplate and which parts are the part where you have to pay like the title insurance fee or whatever. I think the same thing applies. Like if you can read a purchase agreement to a reasonable level so that you don't get screwed in some deal, the same thing kind of applies to smart contracts, learning how to read those a little bit, or at least be able to ask questions of the person who made the smart contract. Like, did they, how do they manage the funds of the smart contract? Where are those funds going to go? Stuff like that. I don't know, basic questions.
I just don't think people have enough time or care enough to do that. And it's not going to get any better. I don't think there's going to be more people who are, oh, let's actually read what we're doing. So is that going to be harmful?
I mean, just to kind of run with my stupid analogy, like we all survive by clicking I agree checkboxes on everything, So it's not like the world won't continue on. I just think it's valuable to be able to do a little bit, like learn a little bit. It'll give you a leg up is what I'm saying. Like if every little bit you can learn about it will give you a leg up. Will you probably be fine just clicking I agree? Yeah, probably. That's
all right.
My take.
We went down. We were going to talk about Akutars.
Oh yeah, Akutars.
And we're over an hour.
Well, John, what do you want to do, Val?
You want to give us the abbreviated word?
Yeah. Headline news.
Well, I feel this 5-minute bag pumping time.
Well, listen, it actually fits real well in the conversation we've had, because we talked about what projects will survive and have provenance, and another piece of that is that I wish. Anyway, another piece of that is the projects that are forming that are meaningful and people value beyond the NFT itself. So not necessarily utility, but that kind of galvanizes the community just for the sake of being part of a community. So not necessarily that you have the OG feel, but you got into something because of it meant something to you, and that's where Aku, I think, sits. And I think we're just at the beginning of seeing projects like Aku launch. So like, I think there's going to be a bunch of these like good feeling charity type projects, projects that people like vibe with, that is like impactful and personal, and like you'd get out of bed regardless of if there was a PFP to be involved with. And so we're just starting that. I think Aku is kind of like the boilerplate or the recipe for success. So if you have something like a project that, you know, it would be tough to get people involved in, you know, everybody's heads down, they have problems they have to take care of. It's something they want to be involved in, but you can't break away. You add in like a financial component to it, and then all of a sudden people can get involved that maybe they couldn't get involved in the past. And I think that's what Aku did. It gave people an excuse to get involved in something that they were passionate about or they found meaning in. So Aku did their Akutar drop today, and I actually didn't even check to see which ones I got, but it was pretty wild because they airdropped basically most of the supply to people that held all the chapters. So the chapters were really, Mike and I talked about this a few weeks back, like they weren't really a buy and flip. It was basically Micah came out and said, here's this idea. We want to support basically the idea that young Black kids can be anything they want to be. And, you know, in society, there's, you know, regardless of wherever you stand, there's barriers, and it's very difficult for certain minority groups to actually succeed. And there's mechanisms in place to make it, you know, to try to address that. But one of the biggest things is, I think that there's not enough encouragement. Like, and this is what Micah's project was all about. And he mentioned it when we did the interview, and I didn't zoom in on it, and I really should have, is that words have power. Like, we all have those moments in our lives where somebody said something and it kind of changed the trajectory of what you thought was possible. And one of the things that has made Disney great is that kids grow up watching these movies and they take lessons from them. And they say, well, I can be this, or, you know, this could be my outcome. And there's not enough representation for young Black kids. And so, like, that's what makes Aku special, is it's somebody that actually created, what makes Micah special, by the way, is actually somebody created a mechanism that is like words that these kids can constantly see. And it's a natural, organic way for these young brains to process, I can be something. And so I think most of the people that, and Micah talked about this, you either get it or you don't. And the people that got it bought the chapters. Like, that message is like clean and it's clear, and its words have power, you know, for this disparaged ethnicity group. And so, like I said, the chapters, it was never, I think that most of the people there probably bought to hold, especially if you got in early. You kind of recognize when you buy one, you were buying all the way through and you are going to be a moon god. Now, this most recent deal is, if you held the chapters, what Micah decided to do is airdrop mint passes. So because there's this craze with PFPs right now, and I'm a big believer there's two types of people that own PFPs, like or don't, let me be specific, donate to charities. And we've all talked about that. It's the people that donate because it feels good, right? And this is kind of like what I think the chapters were like. You feel good when you bought it and you invested, like it's that piece. And I think I'm more skeptical the other side, and which is okay, right? It's good for the movement in general, is the people that want the digital flex. Like, they want, if you have an Akutar, you're now part of this movement, whether you know it or not. Like, I think tonight and tomorrow, you're going to see Twitter absolutely blow up with these Akutar PFPs. And this is what I'm talking about. Micah's managed to capture that secondary investor that is now going to have their PFP saying, hey, I'm part of this. And their money's just as good as anybody else's. And that money now funnels into this movement, which is a good thing. But the cool thing is everybody that bought the chapters initially, which are more the traditional, I invest because it feels good, and this is a way for me to get involved on limited time. He actually paid it back to those original investors by airdropping these PFPs. And so we could go and we could sell it in the market and get a return and bring people in the community. But what those passes have done has been pretty wild. I mean, they just exceeded my expectations and just started taking off and taking off and taking off. And then he also reserved some because he wanted people that essentially, or the idea was he wanted to do a Dutch auction so that people that couldn't afford these really high mint pass prices could still get into the community and be a part of it and enjoy the social activity of being, hey, I'm in Aku. I know you're in Aku. We see eye to eye, we align, right? And so he he set this Dux auction at 3.5. I think was that was the starting price, the ceiling, and it was supposed to drop down. But the crazy thing is when you saw that, you're holding passes, right? And the floor on the passes is already at 5 ETH, and he's about to say, hey, you can mint a bunch for 3.5. Everybody's immediate response was, okay, well, I can sell, and then rebuy in the mint, if that's the case, right? But you would have expected the price of the mint to drop, but it didn't. It kept on rising and rising, which to me signified, okay, there's a ton of momentum, and nobody thinks that this thing is going to last. Like, nobody thinks that they're actually going to be able to get it at 3.5 because the mint's going to sell it almost immediately. Well, the mint started, and I hopped on here, so I broke free. I wasn't watching anymore, but essentially within the first every 7 minutes, it's supposed to drop down in price, like 0.1, so 3.5 go down, 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 down. And by the way that the auction worked was the last pass that was bid of the 5,000 public, the 5,500 public, the very last one that sold, like say the price is like 3.1, managed to get all the way down to 3.1 or all the way down to 2 or down to 1, then everybody got refunded that bid above that. So there was this incentive to kind of just bid early and kind of see what happened if you wanted to get one, because the price was going to come down, you'd get refunded anyway. Well, by the time it got to 3.4, which is the first 7 minute, it zeroed out. It went to 0 on the minting page, or on the auctioning page, not necessarily the mint, but the auction, right? They all got to finish the auction and then they mint. But so it got down, and it turns out that there was a problem with Infura. Is that right? INFURA. Am I saying that correctly? The Infura. And it's like so much got hit at once, and then the page was no longer pulling the data correctly. It showed it zeroed out, but there was still actually some to mint. So I'm not sure how that finally shook out. Like, it could have kept dropping.
2.1.
It dropped to 2.1.
Yeah, and I'm sad that we were on stream because I would have loaded up. I could have minted.
Exactly, and so I think a lot of people were like that. I think that a lot of people are going to look back and say, I could have minted, but I think a lot of people turned away whenever it zeroed out. Yeah. But anyway, I mean, the team has been fantastic. There's nothing they can do about that, right? That's infrastructure problem, not necessarily dev team or the Aku team problems. But yeah, I mean, it was super exciting all day long to be in the Discord and watch it just absolutely explode from 1,000 people to 10,000 people in like a month in the community. It was wild to see NFT Twitter finally wake up to a project that was more than just the standard.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Aku, obviously. I'm really sad that we missed being able to mint 3 more. I think when you think of historical projects, we've gone long. I've got to go do IRL things.
Yeah. Oh man.
What's IRL? Oh my gosh.
What is
in real life?
Oh yeah.
All right, we'll do another video. I think Aku's not going anywhere. We're going to be talking about it a lot. I think it was worth us going deep on some of the existential stuff of NFTs and kind of going off topic. But
I would buy this one for sure. Like, if historical stuff, it would be the Akutars one.
Heck yeah. All right, everyone. Great job.
See y'all later.